Good morning, everybody. It's time for some more draft evaluations, and today we are moving on to the center position. A position where the Seahawks have done some short term work to take care of with the signing of Austin Blythe and the re signing of Kyle Fuller. And I'm not ruling out the Ethan Posick re signing that may be facilitated by the fact that nobody really wants him. But just because we do those things doesn't mean that we're set. And the fact that these are 1 year deals, and I do expect that if we bring back Posick, it'll probably be another 1 year deal. It makes it possible that this team will spend a pick, maybe even a high pick, on a center. Especially because Kyle Fuller's contract is such that it's reasonable to move on from him before the season starts. So we're going to take a look at some centers today. We're going to take a look at the centers that have a shot to go in the top 100, and there are not that many, which isn't shocking. You don't usually see centers as high-valued draft prospects. There is a guy in this draft who some people are head over heels for, but in terms of the actual second, third tier of centers in this draft, it's not great. So we got one guy at the top here, who I'm sure you guys already know about. Got a couple of guys who are kind of interesting, and then you've got a bunch of prospects. It's not a very deep center class. So let's start with the cream of the crop, the guy who is the unanimous runaway, slam dunk, home run, number one center in this class. It's Tyler Linderbaum of Iowa. They produced some nice offensive line prospects in recent years, and Linderbaum, he's one of the best. He is up there. 6'2", 296 pounds, so just a little shy of 300. Ran a 5.14 40 time. Couldn't find his other measurables, but he does have 31-inch arms approximately, so shorter arms. But that's fine for a center, just to put a little bit of finer points on that. It's not a big deal to have shorter arms when you're a center. And if you take a look at the big board rankings, he is a top 24 pick at least on every big board I found. 24 on Walter Football is the lowest he goes. Most of these have him in the teens, and CBS has him 6. So Linderbaum is probably a guy that you could get in the 12 to 15 range if you look at it on average. But he might be the first center prospect in over 50 years to go in the top 10. It is not beyond the pale to imagine. All right, so the pros with Linderbaum are pretty obvious. He is very much NFL ready. If you draft him, you can expect him to start day one. Got a high football IQ. Very smart. Knows how to use things like leverage. Knows how to use things like angles, and knows how to double team well. He's got all that stuff on lockdown. He uses his strength very well. He's not the strongest guy in the world. There are going to be centers out there who are stronger than him, but he uses the strength that he has well, applying concepts again like leverage, like angles, to get the most out of his occasionally limited strength. He is wonderful in space. His technique is sound. This is not somebody who you're going to have to develop over the course of 2 years before he can play well. A great fit for what we're doing in Seattle on offense with Waldron right now, by the way. So if you want to find a center prospect who was made to play center in this kind of offense, look no further than Linderbaum. He's quick off the snap. He gets the ball out of his hands on the snap, and then he gets up and he's ready to go. Very quick on that stuff, and obviously that's one of the most important things as a center. He's got a great mentality for the position. He wants to take people's heads off. Now, he doesn't necessarily have all the strength you would want in an interior offensive lineman, but his mentality combined with his high football IQ allows him to easily overcome that kind of stuff. There's very little to criticize with Linderbaum. He is somewhat small, but I want to say a smaller center in this offense is kind of good. It's not something that I think needs to be complained about. It's not something that I see as much of a problem. He could use more strength. He could. I don't know how much muscle mass he can really add without losing some of his mobility. But he could stand to be a little bit stronger. Okay. Against the Aaron Donalds of the world, against the nose tackles of the world, you may notice some shortcomings. He has short arms, and he's really only ever going to be a center. But to me, those things are not really a problem. They might be a problem for another team, but they're not really a problem for this team, I don't think. We need a center. We have no problems getting a guy who projects to be an all-pro center and can't really do anything else. So Linderbaum would be a little bit of a reach at number 9 overall. He would be. This is a guy who probably should be going in the 12 to 15 range, maybe even the late teens. But he's so good, and so good for what we're trying to do here, and so ready to take some people's heads off the moment you draft him. I would not mind taking him at number 9. It would be a little bit of a reach. That can't be ignored. You might be able to trade back a couple spots and still get him. But Linderbaum would be an awesome addition to this team. We could get Kyle Fuller out of here. Let's go. Okay, next guy we're going to take a look at in the top 100 is Dylan Parham. He is the number 2 center in my estimation. And really, he's the only other center who I think is basically a lock to go day 2. Linderbaum is a lock to go day 1. Parham is pretty much a lock to go day 2, as near as I can tell. He's a little bigger than Linderbaum, 6'3", from Memphis, 311 pounds. Ran a faster 40 time, though, 4.93, so he moves a little better. 3-cone time's pretty good, 7.8. 4.7 shuttle, decent, fine. Got longer arms, 33 inches. And if you look at the big boards, Draft Network thinks he could be a second-round pick. Pretty much everyone else has him in the 3rd round, in that high 3rd round area, so you could get him with that 3rd round pick. Walter Football has him maybe leaking into day 3, but I don't see it. I think Dylan Parham is probably going to be a 3rd round pick. And he may very well be there when the Seahawks pick in the 3rd round. So the exciting things about Parham are he was originally a tight end, and he brings that athleticism and quickness to his game as a center. He's got some versatility. He could play other positions on the offensive line, could play guard. It's not ridiculous to say he could play guard. He's a phenomenal athlete. His 40 time and his shuttle time, it speaks for itself. He moves very well for a guy who weighs over 310 pounds. He's also smart. He uses technique to excel in pass blocking and run blocking. So you're not getting somebody who has a massive deficiency in one area. He's got good range. He can play in space, and he's good moving laterally, keeping in front of pass rushers. He's a good fit for his own scheme because he's not the strongest guy in the world. He will probably do very well in his own scheme where you're blocking to an area rather than just blocking one particular man. So Dylan Parham, definitely a guy I would look at in the 3rd round if we hadn't taken care of center with the 1st round pick. Now, as is the case with most of these centers who project to play well in zone, he does need to add some mass and muscle. Not a ton. I don't think it's a huge deal, but he does need to add some. If you want to be straight honest, he projects to be a center in the NFL. He's never actually played center before. So you're probably going to need to teach him the finer points of playing center. You're going to need to give him some time. This is a little bit of a project. This is definitely somebody you're bringing in to say, okay, hopefully by year 2 you're ready to go. If you look at his physical profile, he should be a pretty good center. But he's never done it. So you're just going based off his athletic ability and his profile. Doesn't look like he's big enough to play guard in the NFL. Therefore, you put him at center. But is he going to be able to pick that up? Only time will tell. No guarantees. All right. One more guy in this video. It's Luke Fortner of Kentucky. He's the only other guy in this draft who I think has a chance to go day 2 at center. He could easily slip to the 4th round. Draft Network has him as actually a 5th round prospect. ESPN says 4th round. Walter Football says 3rd to 4th. PFF and CBS both think he's going to be a very late day 2 or a very early day 3 selection. But this is probably the top non-Parham, non-Linderbaum prospect. I do think he has a chance to go in the first 100 picks. If I had to bet on one center to go along with Linderbaum and Parham, it would be Fortner. So he's got good strength and he's a good athlete. So he's not one of these centers who sacrifices a lot of one to have a lot of the other. He's strong enough to hold up in run blocking, but he's got the athleticism to play in space. He only played center at Kentucky for 1 year, and he did pretty well. So he projects to massively improve as he gains more experience at the position. He's great in space. He's also great off field. Done some great stuff off field while he's been at Kentucky. Not somebody you really have to worry about in terms of a the mental game, mental part of things. His body control and his balance are good, so he's got some technique issues handled overall, you would say. He does a good job of not going too aggressively and getting put out of position. The issues with Luke Fortner would be that because he only has that 1 year playing center, you're going to need to give him time. You might need to give him most of his rookie contract to pick up the finer points of playing center in the NFL. So I don't know if you're looking at him as a day one starter. Now, that's okay for us because we have Austin Blythe. He can hold it down for a year while we try to figure out what we're doing there, but don't expect Luke Fortner to be a day one starter the way you would with Linderbaum. His overall technique can become erratic. Just some stuff with like his footwork and his punch, and his weight distribution can get a little out of whack. But I like Luke Fortner. He certainly is nowhere near, no center in this draft is anywhere near what Linderbaum is. This is definitely a circumstance where we have a head and shoulders above everyone else prospect. But those would be the 3 guys who I think could go in the first 100 picks. Really like Linderbaum. Parham I do like as well. The guys like Parham and Fortner we can afford to mess around with because we have Austin Blythe for a year. So to me, if we want to take a shot in the 3rd round, probably mostly just the 3rd round. I don't think either of these guys are worthy of a high-end 2nd round pick. But if you got Parham or Fortner in the 3rd round, I would be for that. I would be into that, I think. So let me know what you guys think. I'm out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks.